So right, so we're here basically learning about how we actually build the electronic part of our motion sensors. So Darren, can you tell us a little bit more about what we're actually doing with this machine in particular?
Okay, so this is the screen printer, we call it, which will put on solder paste onto the board where the pads are for us to be able to put the components down to eventually solder through on the oven. So the idea is that the board has an alignment with the cameras. The board then goes in where we have a screen inside, which has all the small laser cutouts of the apertures for the components. And so the board will come up, we would have solder paste on here with some squeegee blades, and it will then stroke across, put the solder paste through the screen onto the board, and then the board will come back out.
So it's like screen printing clothes, but with the solder paste.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's effectively screen printing, Rich.
Yeah.
Exactly that, but with a metallic solder paste.
Yeah, conductive paste, yeah.
But the point is here, you've got to get the alignment absolutely bang on. Because you imagine, you know, like that processor which we've got on there, which is what's being highlighted on the screen here, because it's the smallest part, you know, that in itself is maybe 4 or 5 millimeters across. And you can imagine if that's like even a couple of hundredths of a mil off, it's not going to put the paste down in the right place. So that's what the cameras are doing here, is getting that alignment absolutely bang on and adjusting it. So when it gets under here onto the paste, it's bang on and it's gonna squeegee. So now we've pasted the board on the machine over here, we now need to place all the components onto the board. So Darren, how does that work? How do we do
Okay, so with the pick and place machine, the board will come in on the conveyor, where then it will, the table comes up and it will clamp the board. We then have a head which has got 2 nozzles on it, which will pick up the specific tools needed for the components. It will come across on this feeder, which has tapes in with pockets where the devices are sit in the pockets. And then the head will come across, it will come down, it will vacuum the part out of the pocket. It will then go across onto the camera, it will vision it and check the size and any correction needed to be applied, and then go and place it onto the board. This board alone was probably around about 8,000 parts per hour.
Yeah,
so that's a lot.
It can properly throw it down.
Yeah.
And then normally they come out the conveyor there, and the idea is this space will be reconfigured so that pick and place pick and place machine will go, and then the oven will go straight onto that, so it'll come straight out of the machine and then straight into the oven.
Oh, just on its own conveyor system.
That's it. It'll run in a full line is the idea. So so once it comes out of the oven, once it comes out of the pick and place machine, we are onto the oven.
The oven's quite a simple process. It purely needs to heat the board up to solder with the solder paste to melt it to actually then cause it to solder the parts to the board. The oven is on a chain method, so the board would go in onto the chain, and we have 3 zones in there which will basically gradually heat the board up to get the solder to melt, the melting point. Everything will then flow into centralise itself, and then we have a cooling zone at the last part just to cool the board down, so the solder then sort of solidifies to its optimum.
Seals them all in place.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so the board basically sits on the jig here, and when we would just close the drawer. And then what it would do is it would scan the board, and then with the program it will go around the board checking to make sure all the components are placed in the right position, right orientation, just to make sure that we haven't got any failures from the pick and place machine.
Nice.
Yeah. So if we just purely run it through
and sometimes might come out to be a fail, but it's
That's
only
mental.
Yeah. So you can see it's going around visioning and
Getting your part codes,
getting the text.
yeah.
You can see it extracting the text like that and go, yeah, that's the right part, right indentation. Going around every single part.
And you can see on that graph at the top right.
And it might come up saying fail, but it's come up saying pass.
All 25 boards are passed.
So again,
but there's 900 devices
inspected, and
so you think there's
900 components in.
That's it. Yeah. So you got to get 900 things, 900 grains of sand, effectively, some of them anyway, in exactly the right place. So you can imagine that's quite a process, which obviously the automation does, but this machine just gives it that extra layer of.
Because the components are tiny. You couldn't possibly check those with a human eye.
Exactly. Yeah. So
take a long time.
Yeah, and even if this comes up and says fail, which obviously sometimes it does, sometimes that might just be because the component's slightly twisted, or sometimes there's tombstoning, isn't there? So which is basically where one side doesn't connect and it goes poof like that, which basically means it hasn't made the connection, and then that's where they just manually.
Yeah, I was going to say at that point, is it manually done, or would you just lose the board?
No, manually done. Yeah.
So I'm not wasting all those components. No, fix it. Get your soldering iron out.
So
get your soldering iron out.
We would tend to inspect this board with the wet paste to start with. So if there is any misalignments or any issues where it's twisted, we can then quickly adjust that.
Before it goes through the oven.
Put it through the oven.
Right.
And then again after the oven we would check it again just to make sure that the oven hasn't done anything silly with it. But,
and then when we get onto the programming of the board as well, so we're checking it before it goes in the oven, after it goes in the oven, and then also in the programming of it as well, we're then functionally testing every single kind of part as well that it functionally works. But we don't do that. We don't do that here. But that's another level of process that we run on top of boards as well. So
final check.
So yeah, there we go.
Oh, very cool.
That's the process basically.
No
problem. Hope
Cheers,
you learned a little
Darren.
bit.
Yeah.
I love stuff like this, as you mean. Me or may not have noticed.